G'day listeners and welcome to another APS News Bulletin, keeping you up to date and well informed on the Australian property market and everything that's happening out there in real time. Now today guys, we have an episode primarily based around the Queensland property market and a few things in particular that are going on out there right now. Story number one, Property Owners Association of Queensland lobbies to raise land tax exemption threshold. Written by Kenji Sato from the ABC News. In short, Queensland's landlord lobby is petitioning the government for more land tax breaks as their property values continue to rise. The Property Owners Association of Queensland want the land tax exemption threshold to increase 200%. What's next? The petitioners will collect signatures until September. Now guys, I'm going to give you a rundown of the article and you can find in the show notes, I'm actually going to put the petition in there so you guys can go and sign there, especially anyone that owns property in Queensland. You will want to sign this thing to increase the threshold. Queensland's landlord lobby says its members are being forced to pay huge and unfair taxes because their land values have increased so much. Property Owners Association of Queensland Vice President Alexandra De Pontes is petitioning the government for more land tax concessions as values continue to skyrocket. Currently, landlords do not have to pay land tax if the value of their land is less than $600,000. Ms. De Pontes says she wanted to see the land tax exemption threshold increased by 200% from $600,000 to $1.8 million. The threshold has remained unchanged since 2008. Landowners do not have to pay land tax if they live on that land. Now, obviously, guys, to summarize that, landowners don't have to pay land tax if they live on that. Effectively, if it is your primary residence, it is not eligible for land tax, but if it is an investment property, it is. Now, the way that land tax is calculated is it's based off the rateable land value. So because you own something for $600,000 or $700,000, it doesn't mean you automatically then go in and have to start paying land tax. It's a rateable land value. So if your property is worth $600,000, you might have $300,000 worth of rateable land value. So a lot of the time in personal name, you can get, a few properties in there before you start to hit that threshold. What's important to note is obviously trust structures are counted differently. Trust structures from right now, it's nothing up to $350,000 in Queensland. And then once you go above that, they hit you with a surplus charge and then hit you with every dollar of rateable land value above that. I've actually been saying this for quite a while, that I'm wondering, when it's going to happen, especially within Queensland. New South Wales have recently, in the last couple of years, they've recently increased theirs from 600 and something thousand. It's now at 1,075,000 in terms of rateable land value, land tax-free threshold. And SA, like South Australia, has recently gone through a big shuffle at the moment, bumping theirs up to 668 from memory. And Victoria, who's got smashed by this last year, actually dropped their rateable land value down to $50,000, so really, really low. It's just going to create an issue from a supply perspective of rental properties as people cash out of that, not being able to afford it. Now, in summary, guys, all these costs have increased considerably as well in the last few years in terms of holding a property. So if you think about things like, obviously, interest rates being the biggest one, going up 4.25% in the last 2 and a bit years, but council rates, insurances, all these sorts of things have increased. The cost to hold a property have substantially increased. Yes, rents and values have increased as well, but having land tax threshold at the same amount and not having increased since 2008, we're literally talking a 16-year window that it has not increased from that perspective. It's just they're just behind the times, right? So pushing because of this, this reason in particular. So in summary, guys, the petition is there until September something. I don't know what the date exactly is in September, whether it was the 1st or 30th. I can't quite remember. But the petition, we're putting it here in the show notes for you guys if you want to sign that. If you own property in Queensland, I would suggest you jump on there, you sign that thing, and yeah, let's lobby to get this thing raised from that perspective, like other states have done so. Story number 2. Brisbane house prices tipped for mega boom. Article by Big Leith Van Onselen of Macro Business. The latest results from PropTrack show that Brisbane dwelling values have soared 63% since the start of the pandemic in March 2020. The price appreciation is so extreme that Brisbane's median dwelling value is now on par with Melbourne's and will soon surpass it. The Oxford Economics Residential Property Prospects Report, released this week, tips that Brisbane's house price boom will continue, with median house values to rise another 18% by mid-2027 and unit values tipped to rise by 21%. It's very much a demand exceeding supply story. The Oxford Economics senior economist Marie Kilroy said, demand fundamentals are expecting to remain strong, with Queensland positioned at the front of the pack in terms of population growth. Brisbane has a lot of infrastructure being built and it's got the Olympics, so optimism around potential returns for investment is quite bright. in summary, guys, strong demand, booming population, really tight vacancy rates combined with a super low pipeline of properties coming through and supply, obviously, combined with the infrastructure that's going to be coming through from the Olympics is creating the perfect conditions for Brisbane to run and continue to run. So it's running right now. It's had a really, really strong year. And I can tell you from being on the ground right now, we're 6 months into 2024. Brisbane will be one of the star performers of growth this year, especially from a capital city perspective. I think both Perth and Brisbane are going to be outperformers. And I believe it's going to continue to outperform over the next couple of years as well. Some of these figures as well are a little bit light on. Like obviously, it's a city as a whole. Saying 63% since the start of the pandemic. I know a lot of my properties that have actually doubled those numbers. We're talking 120% plus in terms of growth. The interesting thing is that we really, and this article is the same thing, we're not expecting that growth to abate and just pass to the side now. We still believe there is a lot of growth left in the tank for Brisbane, Southeast Queensland as a whole. So it's very, very interesting, seeing that article come out from that side. And it's going to be very interesting to watch that market play out for the rest of this year and then in the next few years coming forward as well. Now, listeners, that is a wrap for another APS Weekly News Bulletin. I hope you took some value. If you did, please make sure you send it on to someone else who you also think might take some great value, and make sure you hit a subscribe if you're not following us or subscribed to us yet on your favorite listening platform. And until next week, guys, it's another APS News Bulletin on the Scouting Australia podcast.